Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. My name is Cody Sizemore and I'm joined here by my lovely co-host, Maria Casillas. And today we're going to be talking to you guys about something that's very critical into everything that we are doing, which would be taking notes. I know it's going to be so much fun. It's such a fun topic, but hey, it's really important. So make sure that you break out a piece of paper and pen and take some notes because it's going to be a good one to take notes for, because we're going to be talking about taking notes. But before we get into that, let me first just say a few things. Number one, if this is your first time listening to this show, we just want to say thank you. It's something that we've been doing for a while now. I think like 3 years or something like that. We have a lot of fun on this show, and we even get value from each other as well. So we're just glad, we're happy that you're here. And if you're a longtime listener or someone who listens every single week, we also want to say thank you to you as well. You guys are what we call our every weekers, and it's really what keeps this show going. So continue to listen, support, send it out to your friends, your family, your kid's doctor. I mean, whoever you want to send it to, like, it's cool. We're just happy that you're here. And then lastly, a really good place to connect with us would be our free Facebook group, which is simply called the Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits. So if you're not in there yet, get in there. It's a fun place. We post a lot of updates, a lot of events. And of course, if you have any questions, it's a great place to drop those too. So with all that being said, Maria, how you feeling?
Good, Cody. How are you doing?
Good. I got my Papa Bear shirt on.
Yes, you do. It's adorable. I love it.
Just that kind of day. So.
Yeah. I'm actually just coming off of a crazy whirlwind week. We had a graduate this week, and so we had a bunch of family in town, and it's just been absolutely insane. But I'm excited to get back into just our regular routine, and be recording with you today. So yeah, this will be good.
Awesome.
I wanted to talk about this a little bit today, Cody, because it came up in one of our monthly coaches meetups. And it was just one of the questions that was kind of thrown out towards the end of the meetup. We didn't have a lot of time to really address it. And so I promised whoever the questioner was that we would address this on the show today. So thanks for indulging me and for indulging that coach. I think the question kind of came up around, how do you keep good notes? How do you keep track of what's kind of going on with your clients? And it was along the lines of not just within the sessions, but how do you then, keep track of them throughout the sessions? What do you use them for? Why are you taking notes in the first place? And so I thought maybe we could just discuss a few of those things today and give that person the answers that they're looking for.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, it's a really important thing. So good structure for notes creates for good structure overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, it's good. So why don't you tell us a little bit about like what you do, and then I'll probably do the same on my end, and listeners can take what they want from it.
Okay, sounds good. So one of the things I want to share first is what kind of notes I take in the first place. So I am not super detail oriented when it comes to the amounts of notes, because quite frankly, I'm so in tune and listening to what that individual is trying to say to me that I'm not like just fervently writing copious notes. However, if I want specific information, I have the client fill out those notes ahead of the session. So if there is, certain demographic stuff, if there's certain numbers that I'm looking for, those kinds of things that I want to have actually written out for me, I will have them fill out a form prior to a session, send that in, and then I can just review those notes rather than having to take them during the session. So that's how I do some of those. And then when it comes to the actual session, oftentimes I'm very big into reflective listening. And I know some of our coaches recognize that that's so much more than just repeating back to the client what they just said to us. And so what we like to do when we're reflecting back, and I know you're really good at this too, Cody. But what we like to do is not just tell them what they told us, but reflect back to them what we actually heard. And oftentimes it's giving them new vocabulary around what they said. It might be, if they tell us that they're angry, and then we kind of share with them, oh, I understand you're frustrated. So kind of giving them a different perspective. And that's one of the things that I like to do while I'm listening is I might just write down a specific note. So in that example, if they say angry, I might, based on their body language, based on what they're telling me, might just write down frustrated real quick. So they can't see any of that, but I'm remembering later on when I'm reflecting back to them, what is it that I'm hearing or seeing? So I like to use my notes for that. They're very not detailed. They're just reminders to me because I don't want to forget going back, like, oh, what was it, that one thing that they said that I wanted to make sure I said? And that's what I use my notes for in the actual sessions. Now, I will say that I have one client who she says that she doesn't like to journal, but after our sessions, she will sit down and she will write down like all of the things that she remembers from the session, and she will share those notes with me. And so then I don't even have to worry about taking any of those notes. And one time I actually said, wow, I'm actually really glad I'm impressed that you can take such detailed notes because I'm so just involved in listening. I never would have gained all of those details. And she said, I'm kind of making some of them up. I don't even know how accurate they are. So I'm like, okay, well, at least it's not just me. But I don't want to be wasting my time writing all of those. And so I think it's great that it allows her to journal, if you will, and get some of those thoughts out. And then she goes back and looks at them and then shares those insights with me. So those are the two extremes of kind of how things go on my end. I'm going to hit pause for a second and invite you into the conversation again.
Yeah, well, I really like what you're talking about when you were talking about the reflective listening,
Mm-hmm.
about really, writing down what you heard and then being able to communicate that with them as well. You're right, I do that as well. But one thing that I like to do is like, so for example, if someone says that they are angry, going off of your example, I
Mm-hmm.
will write down the word angry and then I'll
Mm-hmm.
do like a little arrow
Mm-hmm.
and then write down like what I heard. So that way, like when I am going back and I'm talking to them about it, I could say something along the lines of like, you mentioned that you were angry about this, but what we kind of found, as long as you agree, is, maybe you're actually hurt by this, or,
Mm-hmm.
you have some regret that you had or whatever it might be. And then
Yep.
confirm with them, like, do you think that that's accurate or no? Like that kind of thing, right? I think that
Mm-hmm.
it allows them to be more pinpointed
Yep.
in that point of the conversation that they were actually talking about. And then it can allow them to embrace, accept, or even adopt the new language kind of thing.
Absolutely. And when I do that, I do something similar. I don't use the arrow, but I put quotes around something that they actually said. So
Yes.
that's how I
Yep.
distinguish it for myself in those notes.
Yep.
Sometimes I even write my words, like I actually literally write my words next to something if I want to make sure I'm remembering this is what I said versus
hmm
what they said. And I think that's a very important distinction. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah. And the other thing that I really like that you said too is that you don't take notes like frivolously.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just the important things that you're hearing, and it's kind of shorthand. It's almost like a, hey, remember this because this was important
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
um, I do the same thing as well to some degree, but I think that there's a lot of power if you're looking at someone over Zoom and they're looking at you when you're speaking as compared to them looking down when you're
Mm-hmm.
speaking. You get more out of the person,
That's right.
and they feel more heard. They feel validated. So, of course, you're going to have to look down from time to time, but I wouldn't be writing stuff word for word that they're
That's right.
saying. Do
Mm-hmm.
shorthand, just make sure that you understand it when you look back, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yeah.
was the other thing that really stood out to me that I agree with for sure.
Awesome. So we didn't talk at all yet about where we store some of these notes or what we do with them. And I use one of the same things that you do, but I know that you have more of a system with it. So I'm
Mhm.
actually going to pass this baton over to you and let you talk a little bit about where you store your notes and how you kind of have that organized.
Yeah. We are not sponsored by this company.
We don't even get anything if you go to them. They
Yeah,
they, they got rid of their referral service.
yeah, they did, which I was kind of bummed about, but
Me
it is
too.
what it is. We just both use this, and it's really, really awesome.
Remarkable.
It is quite remarkable, yes. So the thing that we're talking about is the remarkable paper tablet, which is not paper, it's a tablet that acts like paper in a way.
Mhm.
But essentially, it's a tablet for business people, note takers. You can use it for a lot of different purposes. There's like a lot of templates and stuff like that. But and you can organize things really well within it as well. You can make like folders and stuff like that. Like it's really good. But that's what I use. And as far as like a structure of like my note taking process during
Mhm.
my sessions with people, it's a little bit different than the consultation setup that I have, which you can listen back to a couple episodes around that and learn more about that if you'd like. But with my coaching sessions, I have a few different sections. So that at the very top of the page, I will do something like a check-in section to where it's like, hey, like, you gave them some action steps from your last meeting. Let's check in on those and see how those have gone. Did they do it? Did they not? What, if they didn't, what held them up? If they did, how are they feeling? All that kinds of stuff, right? So I always start things off with a check-in kind of thing from our previous meeting.
Mhm.
And then I have an agenda section. So it just says agenda and then like some bullet points underneath that, which is essentially like, this is what I want to do in our session today. And sometimes it's an open agenda, but at least gives me some sort of framework. And then below that agenda, I'll make a little section that just says notes. And then it's completely blank from there. Um, and I do my notes very similar to you. Like I don't write everything down. If there's something that I think is important for me to have for context, or it's important for me to remember, or it's just something that I think is thought provoking on my end, I will write those things down shorthand um, on my notes. I also, do some number crunching as well. Um, and, things that I think are really important, I'll underline. I know I'm getting crazy in here. I'll circle it. I'll put a star next to it, like whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Um, but what's cool about the tablet, the remarkable tablet, is that if you do some sort of like post work for your clients, there is an option to have it transpose from your handwriting into text, and then you
Mhm.
can email it via PDF to yourself directly
Mhm.
from the remarkable tablet. I don't do that a lot personally. Um, I guess I'm kind of old school, but you can do that.
Mhm.
But that's a really good thing, especially if you do something that's similar to me, which I don't know. I don't think it sounds like you do this, Maria, but I do. Maybe you do. But I do some post work for these clients. So I'll make like a 2 or 3 page PDF document with like a few different sections that say like a summary section, which is like what we did in our session, what we talked about, some action steps, which is going to be their homework, and
Mhm.
a resources section, which might be like a 5-minute YouTube video or something like that, right?
Mhm.
So I'll use my notes to then build that post work thing that I email them, and that way they have something to refer to at any point in between our sessions to ensure that they're actually moving forward. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's really great. And another thing, excuse me, that I really like about this particular tablet is the page can be as long as you want it. And
yes.
so when you're doing the system that you just suggested, if you have your check-in and then your agenda and then your notes, it can on a regular page, it could end really quickly. But on this, you can actually scroll up and just make that page as long as you want so that there's only one page per se per session.
Hmm.
And it makes it easy to find. You can then go back quickly and see it. I also love that you can change things around in there. And I think that's what I
Yes.
like so much about it is if somebody says something and then I make a note, but then I realize, oh, it's up here, I can just cut and paste that note really fast and
Hmm.
just move that one small section. And so that's been really great. And while I also don't use the writing to text super often, because in reality, sometimes with my handwriting, it doesn't always get it right. And I have to go
Sure.
back and do all that. But you can actually create a PDF just with your handwriting as well. And that I really appreciate that. I don't have to change it into regular text messages. And I have saved that and sent it to clients afterwards. So, here are some of my notes. And sometimes it's fun for them to see what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing when I share that information. So it's super slick that way. And I really do appreciate it. Like you said, we don't get anything by endorsing this. So this is not a remarkable section. We're not talking about that specifically today, but it is something that's been very useful for me. And I really do appreciate some of those small little things that allow it to just be more efficient, I think.
Yeah. And I think that the big takeaway from this entire talk is really two things. Number one, simplify your notes.
Yeah.
Don't think about it too much. Just have a few different sections, a little bit of organization, and then just run with it. Just let it kind of flow. And you can use bolded systems. You can use arrows. You could use paragraphs, like whatever works best for you and your brain. So that's one key takeaway. But the one that I really think is really important is don't get so lost in the notes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do, you're probably going to miss what you actually need to hear from your clients.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the biggest one. My biggest takeaway from this conversation is that because sometimes people, they overthink things, and they're like, I have to get every single detail in order to give the best quality. But sometimes by doing that, it actually causes our quality to go down. So
that's right. Yeah. And I think sometimes when we are, like, to your point, Cody, we are so wrapped up in what those details are, we're not actually listening. And the reality is, we've said this over and over on this show, we don't know our clients better than our clients know our clients. And there are many times where, and I mean this, the way that my brain works, I wish it worked better sometimes, but I oftentimes need to just kind of compartmentalize something. And then it's kind of like on your Mac, when you are done with it, you just throw it in the trash. Sometimes that's how I am with some of my client sessions. I know that sounds horrible, but it's like I give my everything in that session, and I am there and I am listening. I am very intentional. But then when I move on to the next client, I have to be very intentional with that client as well. And I can't let all of the stuff from the previous client get messed up in there. And so I have to sort of, like, okay, that one, it goes into the trash. And I need to be able to focus on the next one. And then that one goes into the trash, and so on and so forth. And sometimes it's like, well, are you really serving them if you forget everything? And I'm like, I'm not the one who has to remember everything from that session. The client is the one who needs to remember the things from that session. The client is the one who needs to implement the things that we talked about in that session, not me having to do that for every single client. And so for me, I kind of use my notes the same way. Like I have them there. I want to be able to go back and reference them. But I end up seldom doing that because the client is the one who really needs to go back and look at, well, what do we do and what do we need to do to move forward? So I don't know about you, Cody, but I seldom have to go and reference some of those notes that I wrote.
Yeah. And I do the same thing. So
it's not just my crazy brain.
No.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you saying that out loud.
And I think that that's important to do that. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing, because that means that when you're with the client, you're with the client, But as far as like having a refresher goes, like sometimes I meet with people once a month. So having a refresher would be nice.
Absolutely.
That post work that I do, that's my refresher.
Yeah.
I look at it for like a minute before I prepare for the upcoming meeting. I get the check-in information I need to. I refer, what we did last time, and then I go into the next one and create the agenda, So just having something like that, it might be good. So that's probably what helps me compartmentalize, is just having that like little cheat sheet kind of thing,
100% agree. And while you are correct, I don't always send a bunch of post work. I don't do that consistently with my clients. But I do sit down for a few minutes after session and just jot down some notes that I can then use later on. And that's actually really important through New Money Habits as well, because there are three of us who tend to, I don't want to say share clients, but we work together with our clients. Our clients have access to all of us. And so in order to serve them well, each of us has to kind of have some running notes as to what happened in this session with Maria versus what happened in this session with Mike. And so we do that post work just for, internally. And that is easy to then go back and look at as well. So I think that that's a really good point that you made. If you just take 3 minutes at the end of every session to jot down the most important things, so that if you don't speak with them for another month, or if another coach is actually working with them, then they can see what were the main points that happened in that particular session. There is one more thing I'd like to talk about before we wrap up, and that's the idea of, so if you don't use something like Remarkable, or you don't use, maybe you just want to use regular paper and pencil, what do? Do you just store them in a file folder somewhere? I think that's kind of what some of these people were asking too. What sorts of systems are in place in order to keep notes on some of this stuff? Do they then shred them for confidentiality purposes? Things like that. Do you have any thoughts on those?
Not good thoughts. So I hope that you have something good, because
okay.
I will say I started my business off piece of paper and pen. And it was fine, but it was challenging because I basically had 2 options. At least I thought I did, which was I have one notebook that I have all of my clients' information in. And sometimes if I'm meeting with someone 2 weeks later, then I might need to go back, 13, 16 pages and see where our last meeting was, and then start a new one, which is just messy.
Yep.
Or the other option would be, well, I go and buy a notepad for every client, which is also like, one, it's just annoying, but then it takes up a lot of space. It's a waste of paper because you're probably not going to use the entire thing for one client. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a huge reason as to why I invested into the Remarkable, and it did change the trajectory of and the quality of how I run my business. So again, I'm not sponsoring Remarkable. I just think that it's remarkable. But that was my challenge. And I never really found a solution to it aside from just transitioning. So that's why I said it's not good feedback.
No, it is good feedback, I think, because I had those 2 options, but the third option, which is one that I frantically tried to use several times, was having like file folders for my clients, and then just grabbing like a piece of printer paper and using that, or tearing out a piece of paper from a notebook and throwing that in there. And same thing. It got messy. It took up a lot of space, and it was just like, come on, like it was not efficient at all. But what I'm gaining from this conversation is you and I obviously have the brain, excuse me, that needs to write something down. Like, yes. I would not be the type of coach to sit like this and be typing something while somebody is talking. I just, as my counselor background, I always just kind of saw that as like the psychiatrist or the, psychologist just taking these notes, and it just feels stuffy to me, and I would never do that. It always made me feel like I wasn't being heard or listened to, and so for that reason, I knew that was out as an option. So I suppose you could do, like, if you have an iPad or something and you get the pen, you could use that. I know that those are options. So we're not trying to sell you on a specific device. But if you recognize that you need to actually physically write something, don't go away from that. Just, it's okay to embrace it. Recognize that might be the way you best take notes. And so maybe grab a piece of paper and put it in a file folder, or grab notebooks and do that, or invest in some sort of tablet that's going to allow you to do that just the same way. So anyway, thank you so much for having this conversation. I know it kind of seemed weird at the beginning, like, why are we talking about taking notes? But I do think that it is something that's one of those unspoken things that happens as coaches. And it's like, oh, yeah, we kind of do need a system for that, or we're just going to be flying by the seat of our pants and wondering what to do next. So
yeah, I agree. Alrighty, guys. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast, and we'll catch you guys on the next one next week.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.